Apologizing is definitely a necessary skill we need to have in order to live in a society, but the act of it can definitely backfire and cause you even more harm. There will always be a portion of people with very toxic personality who might abuse your social stance after you apologize by guilt-shaming, threatening, manipulating, all that stuff. And aside from all those intentional miscommunications perpetrated by them, there are also innocent miscommunications where apology wasn't accepted because it wasn't portrayed properly. Different forms of apologies work differently at different times, and yes, that is partly your responsibility to match the specific apologetic energy, but what might be news to you is that there are certain core principles that applies to any forms of apology according to science. And yeah, I am going to have to talk about the obvious ones, but I can assure you, by learning about the scientifically appropriate methods of apology you can use when necessary, you might be able to save that relationship that would have otherwise shattered. Likewise, in this channel, you'll be able to learn about these interesting and educational science and psychology that can help you greatly in your life. So if you enjoy watching about these stuff and want to watch more, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Life Study Library, and share to others that this channel exists. Thank you for doing that, and here we go. The study is from Ohio State University on 2016 using 755 participants. The premise of the study was, an employee of a fictitious company made an error that caused the company great damage, and the participants of the study played the role of the boss. They were presented with various forms of apology statements and were tasked to rate which one of them made the participants forgive the employee the best and the worst. Afterward, the study found 6 major common components that might determine the right way to apologize. And before I reveal the ranking, I have to clarify that the scenario took place in a business environment, meaning that this ranking will probably not work the same in other situations, like in a romantic relationship. Okay, let's start from the bottom. 6th place goes to begging for forgiveness. This one is pretty obvious because it's not actually solving any issue, so we're moving right along. 5th place goes to promising that you will never make the same error, which is also pretty obvious in its ranking. Like, you've made the mistake once, who's here to say that you'll never make it again? 4th place goes to explaining what you did wrong. This is a little better, but in a usual social setting, especially in a professional social setting, simply acknowledging your mistake isn't enough. 3rd place is expressing regret, which is also pretty useless by itself, except for maybe making the other person feel power over you. 2nd place is presenting a solution to the mistake or the problem. And the 1st place goes to accepting your mistake. The study shows that accepting your mistake is the best form of apology by a long shot, followed by presenting a solution. And from 3rd to 5th is pretty samey in its effect, and then 6th place is simply unnecessary on many occasions. The research team explains that first and foremost, admitting your mistake is what you should start with. This might seem like a surface level approach, but it's definitely a starting point to you showing enthusiasm to fix any mistakes, and then providing action steps to fix it. In addition, because it's natural for the other person to get emotional due to anger or irritation, it'd be even better if you add on a sprinkle of regretful emotion of making that mistake. The other person, and yourself in many cases, will already be emotional enough, so you shouldn't overwhelm them with even more unnecessary waves of emotion. And now let's talk about the opposite end. Can you overdo apology? Of course, admitting your mistake when you made an error or wronged someone is important, but at the same time, too much can also backfire. Apologizing too often with trivial stuff can lead to your apologetic stance losing its value, or the other person can abuse that and try to take something from you. So, how can we find the Goldilocks? Answering this question is a study done in 2023 that used 384 participants and made them read a short novel about a fictional character's weekly life. The study divided its samples into 2 groups and made the first group read the version where their protagonist apologized frequently, and the second group read the version where the protagonist didn't apologize as much. Participants were later asked for their impressions on the protagonist. Results showed that participants viewed the main character who frequently apologized as more conscientious and had a warm personality compared to the samples who read the version with the less apologetic protagonist. But the more apologetic protagonist was also viewed as lacking in confidence or assertiveness. Interesting, isn't it? The study did another experiment in which 300 participants were tasked to rate the impressions of an apologetic romantic partner, and the results were pretty similar. it appears that people view those who apologize frequently as high in moral or high in conscientiousness, but also lacking in self-confidence or self-assurance. This seems pretty obvious, but here's where it gets interesting. The study also showed that even if a person apologizes frequently, if they showed a high-quality apology, they have a less chance of being viewed as incompetent. So it appears that even apology is an art form, and when done appropriately, it'll come with many benefits. So, to the people who have a habit of apologizing too frequently, you do not need to force yourself to apologize less or anything like that. All you need to do is make sure those apologies are in high quality. And the specific ways you can accomplish this is exactly what I've talked about in the first half of this video. I'll repeat that this ranking is based on the effectiveness of the different kinds of apologies in a business environment specifically. So in other situations where you did something so atrocious, maybe getting on your knees and begging for forgiveness is the best form, and the only form of apology you can give. You can also definitely combine multiple forms of these apologies to make its effect even greater. So like, after you accept your mistake, you might want to explain what you specifically did wrong, and then express regret of doing that, then finish it with a solution to fix that mistake. And that was it for the study, but yeah, it'll be the best if you can avoid making situations where you have to apologize in the first place. You're apologizing because you've wronged someone, and depending on the intensity, you can for sure break the social trust you have with that other person. It's almost common knowledge that a broken trust or damaged impressions of yourself takes an unhealthy amount of time and effort to rebuild, even if the cause was unintentional. From social trust between friends to professional trust between yourself and your clients, trust is something that is extremely hard to build but can crumble at the lightest of blows. Today's recommended book, No One Understands You and What to Do About It, by Dr. Heidi Halvorson, talks about this issue, as the book states that it's nearly impossible for people to understand each other, and even goes on to say that that's the standard. But not all hope is lost. The later half of the book talks about how people who unintentionally gave the wrong impressions to their peers can rebuild their social reputation. The material is really helpful, so I should make a video about it, but you should definitely read it to understand this topic even further. For the recommended videos you should watch right after, you should watch The Psychology of Ghosting in Relationships. This video talks about trust in a romantic relationship, as there are people who do not deserve your love or your trust, and becoming intimate with that person will get you into so much trouble, so it's not worth the cost. A portion of the video talks about how a big part of why betrayal happens in a romantic or any relationship is because of a mismatch between the participants' ideas about that relationship. If your partner thinks that an open relationship is acceptable, but you don't, then that mismatch will cause you to think that your partner cheated and betrayed you, when to them it was a normal, accepted thing to do. Ghosting can also happen from this misunderstanding, where your partner didn't think that it was a committed relationship, but you did, and therefore felt betrayed. And also, your partner, sensing all this, stops viewing you as an ideal partner. What I'm saying is that once you and your partner commit to that relationship, you two need to sit down and figure out each other's understandings of that relationship, and try to compromise or match those understandings as best as you can. To learn more about the specific steps to doing so, you should also watch 14 Ways to Maintain Your Romantic Relationship. This is a two-parter, so make sure you start with the part 1 of this series. I've been Lye Yosh, and you've been watching Life Study Library.